Hola, minasan! Welcome back for another round of Warhammer research. Jumping over onto the 40k side, I want to bid adieu to the Orks. This is going to be the last time I'm going to do the Orks because I want to shift over to another faction. I want to do the Tyranids. I'm very curious about the Tyranids and how they work, how they operate, what their lore is, and so on. So I figured this is a good place to make the shift. Going over to Weshammer. Returning to Weshammer with our Orks Superior To Humans, 40k lore. That's going to be a pretty fun thing to find now. If they truly are superior to humans, as they should be, since they just like to walk over everybody. Let me tell you something. The Orks are fun. I really enjoyed them, and I'm hoping I could set aside a good budget. I want to get a couple of orc figurines at the very least, if not to play, to at least to have for display. Put on display for a little fan loyalty at the very least. But gonna end it on such a good note here with finding out if they are superior to humans or not. This is a call to action. Comment, like, subscribe, follow, and hit the notification bell. And let us begin the research.
Orcs are better than humans in every conceivable way. At least, that's a sentiment that's been argued by the orc fans within the 40k community since the very beginning of the franchise.
I'm liking the animation in the background.
Hand, I get it. The orcs are clearly having way more fun than everybody else
yes.
in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, as it's a galaxy that's plagued by constant violence, and getting into a good scrap is what every orc lives for. The orc fans themselves seem pretty confident in this assertion, that their particular favorite faction is better than all the rest. And as ridiculous as it sounds to everybody else, because we all know that the orcs are a bunch of rampaging hooligans that don't care about nothing but fighting, I have to admit that the orc players are pretty convincing. I don't know about you, but I've personally never met an orc player that I didn't immediately like. They just seem like much more well-rounded people, you know? At the very least, they
give
have
them a soccer ball
humor and seem to be able to take a joke.
Let's see what happens.
But is all this just memes, or is there any truth to this idea? Are orcs actually better than humans? What are the fundamental differences between both factions? How are their societies structured? And is the orcs' hierarchical system of quote-unquote the biggest orc is the boss actually superior to the intricate systems of authority found within the Imperium? What if we compare the average human to the average orc boy? Which one of them ultimately has a better life? Well, today we're going to be getting to the bottom of that and a whole lot more. So come with me as we dive headfirst into the grimdark and find out once and for all if orcs really are best.
If you've been part of the Warhammer 40k community for any length of time, then you've definitely heard a top-tier orc enjoyer bragging about how orcs are objectively better than just about every other species in the galaxy, most importantly humanity. However, this idea is something that doesn't tend to go over too well with us smooth-brained Imperium and or Chaos simps, and we need a little bit more convincing. I'll fully admit I was one of them and had to do a pretty good chunk of research into this particular subject myself. But both humans and orcs on the surface seem to have different strengths and weaknesses. But are the weaknesses of the orcs actually weaknesses, or has there just been a whole bunch of Imperial propaganda that has distorted how we view the green-skin menace? Well, in this video, we're going to be getting to the bottom of that, and to start the comparisons off, we should go with the obvious things first, such as physicality. And this one's kind of a no-brainer. Physically speaking, the orcs are superior to humanity in every conceivable way.
Yes.
They are bigger, faster, stronger, tougher, and most importantly, greener than humans. Orcs are incredibly resilient and are able to shrug off devastating injuries that would surely kill a human being, whether that be due to their incredibly thick skin that is difficult to puncture, a hyperdense skeletal system that is all but immune to breaks and fractures, or even a limited system of organs, each of which contributing to the overall well-being of the orc, but most importantly, none of them are critical to sustaining life. If a human being gets stabbed in the gut and one of our organs ruptures, if we do not receive immediate medical attention, it will probably be the end of our story.
True.
Not so with the orcs. Even if an orc suffers something as egregious as decapitation, it's been proven that a pain boy can reattach the head to either the body of the original orc or
I
a
can see
donor
it,
with
Staples.
seemingly few complications. When it comes to how they eat, the orcs are omnivorous, and they can seemingly derive nourishment from just about anything. Most importantly, even if no regular food source is available. There have been many autopsies done on captured orc specimens that show that their bloodstream is full of countless different types of smaller fungal organisms that possess high chlorophyll content and aid in a rudimentary ability to undergo a form of photosynthesis. Meaning, as long as there is sunlight, an orc can go incredibly long stretches without consuming what we would consider to be food. This, coincidentally, also aids in their reproductive system, as they reproduce by shedding spores, which then grow into more orcs, Gretchen, or squigs, all of which can be used as a viable food source for the orcs, meaning that even if a single orc was to show up on a barren world with no food, the population would still increase exponentially as long as there was sunlight. There is a common notion that orcs are simply sentient mushrooms, and it's kind of a grossly oversimplified meme that's spread throughout the community, but there is a hint of truth to this. They're not just fungi or animals, they are a genetically engineered symbiosis of both kingdoms, taking together a diverse grouping of traits from both to create a particularly hardy and long-lived organism. They were engineered 60 million years ago by the Old Ones as a species of warriors, fighters built specifically and only for combat, and thus when we examine the bodies of the orcs, we can detect no signs of evolution. They are perfect in their design, and have remained that way for millions of years. Even the legendary Korks, super orcs that were said to be upwards of 30 meters tall from the days of the War in Heaven, are something that the orcs of today are still genetically capable of becoming. And speaking of what an orc can turn into, we should look at how each and every one of them begins their lives. As I mentioned before, the orcs reproduce through spores. They're shedding them throughout the entirety of their life, and when they die, they release a particularly large amount of them all at the same time. These spores grow in the earth and then develop into more orcs. The gestation time can take only a couple of weeks, wherein the orc will be fully developed and rip his way out of his underground cocoon before bursting up from underneath the soil. This is what makes them incredibly dangerous and difficult to get rid of, as even if you manage to kill all of the orcs, there are still definitely going to be some spores behind that you missed.
So they're kind of like an infestation type of species. They became one of those like an infestation that not infestation. They're an invasive species. I think that's the appropriate way to call the orcs. They're an invasive species. You drop them off on a planet, they could reproduce spores, and then left unchecked, you're gonna get overrun by basically intelligent Last of Us. Because they like the clickers since they're fungal-like, but they're intelligent clickers, and you'll just get overrun by them. Chat says, Warhammer became one of my favorite lores, but I only played the RTS games, Dawn of War, which I highly recommend, by the way, my favorite RTS. The way the authors tied the existence of orcs in space and how that primitive technology works is extremely creative. I agree, they're very creative on how they were able to take a fantasy concept like orcs, a high fantasy concept, because they're supposed to be derived from goblins and such, like a derivative of goblins, and just turn them into something epic, and most importantly made them the fun part of all the factions, in a world where everybody is just pure evil. Nothing but evil. And then you have the orcs. Chat says, due to those spores, most of the time once an orc invasion happens upon a planet, most governments usually just demand a planet-wide nuclear cleansing. The way orcs travel in space is the best. I wonder if that's going to be covered. I would like to see how that's covered. Oh, man.
The novel Imperial Glory by Richard Williams gives us a rare peek into what it's like for an orc at the moment of their birth. The novel itself is a classic tale of the Imperial Guard versus the orcs, but in a segment between Chapter 18 and Chapter 19, the story suddenly shifts perspective and goes back in time 1 year before the events of the book. This is where we see the war boss known as Choppa at the moment that he tears himself free from his birthing pod. Before he even emerges, he's already fully conscious, and the only reason he decides to dig his way out in the first place is that he suddenly finds himself uncomfortable. The space that he has existed in for as far back as he can remember, which admittedly is only about a week, has always felt safe and secure. Now it's tight and cramped, and he doesn't like it and he wants out. He tears at the pod and then starts digging through the dirt. It's a weird sensation on his fingers as he's never touched soil before. Even when he starts to emerge from the ground, the feeling of wind against his skin is kind of unnatural and unnerving. Even more unnerving is the fact that he's never actually seen anything with his own eyes before, and opening them for the first time is an alien experience. The very first thing that he sees is another orc, and he recognizes immediately that this thing is stronger than him because it's physically larger. Already, he's inclined towards violence, and he realizes he needs to find something to make him stronger, which he does in the form of a large stick. He then proceeds to sneak up on the other orc and beat him to death. In the pursuing fight,
he's like, I was in a cramped space, I must beat you.
And sees a weird red liquid come out. But when the other orc hits him back, the same red liquid doesn't appear. He understands that this is a telltale sign that he's winning. After he defeats his opponent, he picks up his enemy's axe. He bites on it and tries to bend it, but no matter how hard he does, it doesn't flex. He realizes that this thing is stronger than his club, and thus by wielding it, he is now stronger than before. After this, he notices he's being watched by a Gretchen. He doesn't know what a Gretchen is, but he sees that it's smaller than him. Thus he knows that he's stronger and gives chase. The Gretchen ends up leading him to a pack of squigs, and since they're territorial,
wow, look at the design on these.
He manages to crush one of them and the other one scamper off. There's this weird pain in his stomach, not the same pain from before where he got punched by the other orc, but it's something different, and he instinctively understands that by eating this squig, it will be relieved. After he eats, he goes back to sleep in his hole, and over the next several days, the Gretchen keeps coming back. Eventually, he follows the grot to a camp of orcs, and although the Gretchen seems to be indicating that he wants him to go join the other boys, he's reluctant.
I just imagined him going back into the hole, looking like a prairie dog. He just just sits inside the hole. He's like waiting, but then he'll peek out when someone shows up, like a prairie dog. And they'll probably like point and laugh at him, but then all of a sudden when he steps out, they're like, and this whole shadow looms over them before he starts beating them up with his axe.
There are more of them than him, and he understands that together they're stronger. Even still, he can't shake this deep sense of belonging, and he wants to be part of them. He goes back to his birthing grounds and sees another orc emerging from his cocoon. It's howling in pain as its leg has twisted at an unnatural angle. He sees the new spawn as weak and goes to kill it, but suddenly the Gretchen flies out of nowhere, clawing at him, saying that boys don't kill other boys. He seems confused, so thinking quickly, the Gretchen points at the new spawn and calls it a boy, and then points back at him and calls him the boss. He then points at the broken leg and tells him to dock it. Choppa doesn't really understand what he means, but he grabs the leg and wrenches it back together. Choppa would eventually join with the other boys, and over the next few weeks he would learn his role within this society, even becoming their de facto war boss within only a year. So, what can we take away from this whole passage? The moment this orc is born, he already has a rudimentary understanding of all of the things around him. He demonstrates propensity in a fight, making his first kill within 20 minutes of being born. He then learns what food is and how to hunt, and is successful in his very first attempt. He is like a sponge, absorbing new stimuli, environmental factors, and situations, and intuitively understanding what they are and how to respond to them.
I really like the checkerboard motif. Just look at that. You know, saying it's the checkered flag. I really like to. I would like some of that elaborated as to why that motif exists. I'm very curious about that checkerboard, the checkerboard motif. I mean, it reminds me of the checkered flag in racing, and I know that they drive cars, but they don't always drive cars. You know, they don't always drive vehicles. I'm very curious what that means to an orc. The whole checkered, like the whole motif story-wise. It's very fascinating to see that. It's a very, very powerful aesthetic, at least from the way it's being conveyed. You know what I'm saying?
He then integrates into orc society and very quickly rises through the ranks to become a powerful leader figure in only a year. Now, compare all that to a human baby. I don't know about you, and I'll freely admit I can't really remember what it was like being one, but if the accounts of my parents are to be believed, I hadn't accomplished shit. We are remarkably useless for a pretty long period of time and are completely reliant on others to ensure our own survival. Orcs, on the other hand, are just built different.
Two
From a
different.
viewpoint that only focuses on biology, we can see that the human belief in its own superiority is beyond just wishful thinking, it's blatantly incorrect. But being tough and hardy isn't everything, and many believe that intelligence is the true hallmark of greatness. So how do the orcs stack up against humans in the brains department? As we discussed in the previous section, not only are orcs able to adapt to new situations incredibly quickly, but they also each contain certain levels of innate wisdom encoded into them at a genetic level, giving them
Interesting.
a remarkable understanding of not only survival tactics, but also physics, engineering, and medical science, just to name a few.
That's actually true. Because they can't build anything if they have no knowledge, no level of intelligence, and they build some crazy stuff. Hell, they even know how to replace limbs with prosthetics and cybernetics. That takes a hell of a lot of intelligence. That's actually, yeah, he's right. They gotta, they can't do what they do without high level of intelligence, knowledge, and wisdom aside. Having knowledge in technology, that really takes a very high level of intelligence. Basically, they're all a bunch of incredible hulks. Yeah, there we go. They're basically a species of incredible hulks. What if Incredible Hulk was like the orcs? He just pops up a bunch of smaller Incredible Hulks and they all grow big and then Hulk out. Partially true. It has a secret to it. Chat says. LB addresses their main power. Hopefully. He has to address it because he's comparing that to humans, and the power of humans is just pure unadulterated anger and hatred.
On numerous occasions, they have left the Imperium completely baffled by their ability to come up with ingenious solutions to overcome just about any problem or obstacle that ends up in their way. Whether that be by creating a system of underground drills to leech resources from their enemy, create vast arrays of void ships capable of sailing across the stars, or even producing reality-defying devices that can break the known laws of the universe. In fact,
Of course they
I
would.
would go so far as pointing out that when it comes to feats of engineering, humanity has yet to produce something that the orcs have not been capable of replicating. Whether it's titans, void ships, all manner of weapons, vehicles, or even warp drives, the orc version of these things might not look as pretty or be as intricately designed, but they not only work, but are made cheaper and faster. And whether it be based on the orcs' inherent knowledge or a combination of that and their own personal discoveries,
That mech.
they actually know how their machines work. Conversely, technology over in the Imperium is routinely based on blueprints from the time of the Dark Age of technology, and humanity only has a base-level understanding of how they work in the first place, which has led over time to a cult of superstition developing around keeping them functioning through ritualistic prayer and sacrifice. If you know any one thing about how orcs structure their society, then you'll know that, quote, the biggest orc is the boss.
Yes.
This is a fundamentally true statement, but the statement itself has much deeper meaning than what we get on the surface level. Why is the biggest orc the boss? Well, clearly it's because he's bigger and stronger than all the rest. Thus, he's more likely to get his way, and any individual orc that would attempt to challenge him would probably get clobbered. But as I established before, the orcs are not stupid. Even if said orc is bigger and tougher than all the rest, the orcs are stronger together. And if at any moment they didn't feel like following the boss's orders, they could simply overpower them and elect a new boss. This isn't to say that that doesn't happen.
Or they could
as
always
bloody
walk away and do
disputes
their own
over
faction.
Who really is the biggest and toughest are a time-honored tradition amongst the orcs. But if this is the case, and an entire group of orcs, or one particularly cunning boy that comes up with a really clever plan, could take the position of boss for themselves, why do they choose to follow any given individual? Well, let's examine that. The biggest orc is the boss. Orcs get bigger the more fights they get in. The orcs collectively understand this, so when they see an orc that is bigger than them, they're not following him out of fear, a sense of duty, or, if I'm being honest, not even really out of a sense of respect either. It's because a large orc demonstrates a rare quality that is particularly attractive to the boys. This is an orc that can provide for them their entire purpose for existing, a good scrap. And not just one. If he managed to live long enough to get stuck in enough times to become war boss, then this orc has collectively seen more action than all of the other boys put together.
That makes
Following
sense.
such an individual, the orc in question is promised a number of fights exponentially higher than if he was to set out on his own. Thus, submitting to the will of the war boss is in his own selfish best interest. And I know what you're thinking. How can it be in their best interest if all of these battles are statistically likely to lead to the orc's death? And that's Humie thinking. You have to think like an orc. The outcome of the battle is not nearly as important as experiencing the battle itself.
Yes, experience the
Charging
fight.
headlong into the fray, whooping and hollering,
the
swinging
fight is
stone axes
everything.
around and mindlessly firing off volley after volley of Daka into the enemy is a highly desirable state of being for the orcs.
That means that they're a bunch of Ryus. If you know Ryu from Street Fighter, he even though he doesn't have a problem with winning his fight, winning the fight is not what's important to him. What's important to Ryu is that he gets better and better with his fight, that he gets stronger and stronger with each fight he has. He only cares about the fight. Goku too. Goku's another one. Goku wants to fight more and wants to fight the strongest. In fact, they're more closer to Goku really than Ryu. So yeah, this is all a bunch of Gokus. So this is a bunch of Gokus that are also a bunch of Incredible Hulks. So it's kind of like if the Incredible Hulk has the mindset of Goku, where the fight is everything. and it's a pleasurable joy. I know I'm going crazy here with the metaphors. It's just that the orcs are just too dang awesome, man. It's like they don't care about dying. They all they care about is having a good fight. Having a good fight. That's so Goku. It's so Goku, and then they have all they fight because they like it, not because they need it. That is one of the funniest things about them. I agree, chat. It's just freaking hilarious. You have no idea how hard that is to legitimately write that and keep that consistent, because it's so easy to slip away from that premise where fighting is a necessity for their own survival, pleasure, and advancement of their species and lives, without devolving it into any of the cliches that's going out that you could find in media tropes. That's a very good testament of writing, to be able to hold on to that. That's all. That there's just nothing but pleasure in the fight, whether you live or die. It's all about getting the joy out of the fight before the result. It's that's not easy, actually, to write that type of character and keep it that consistent for a very long time. That's impressive. That's very impressive in writing.
It's more than just addictive, it's a biological need for them. And the orc boss himself is in a precarious situation. He isn't like a human leader that has badges, fancy medals, or some unearned sense of authority granted to him by some other dude with even more fancy medals. He can't just command his troops to do things they don't want to do. With humanity, being a soldier means doing exactly as you're told at all times.
Yeah.
Even if that means putting yourself into highly undesirable situations that will most likely get you killed. A state of being that every biological instinct is telling you to flee from. But you and your comrades do it anyways, held together by a sense of duty, or oftentimes by an even stronger fear of the commissar behind you rather than the enemy in front of you. Thus, the soldier is a slave to the whirlwind of thoughts and emotions in his own
What's
mind.
with the pirate hat?
Statistically speaking, the human soldier is likely to follow a course of undesirable actions that will ultimately lead to their death, rather than disobey orders from an authority figure. The orc boss, on the other hand, with no badge of office to derive some mystical sense of authority from, in turn generates his authority by providing for his people exactly what they want.
My man in a
or
mech
risk
suit.
taking a chain axe to the teeth. Even outside of battle, every single orc knows their place within society. They know what clan they belong to, they know what they're good at, what specialties they have, and what role they fill within their tribe's culture. No matter what they are or how old they get, they always have a purpose. There's also always room for upward mobility. If you're a particularly talented mech boy and you earn the respects of the orcs that enlist your services, you can build a bigger and better shop. Same goes for a pain boy in his clinic, or any given boss under the war boss that wants to build a bigger and tougher mob. Hell, every single orc has equal opportunity to become a boss or the war boss. They just have to decide that that's what they want to do and take their shot. However, over in the Imperium, that's not normally the case for the vast majority of humanity. And it gets a little
Those are all
skewed,
humans?
since most of the stories that we read from the 40k novels traditionally follow somebody who is an esteemed member of one of the armed forces that make up the Imperium. The reality is that ending up in such a position is incredibly rare, and it's normally the people who have gone through the prestigious military academies like the Schola Progenium. For 99.99999% of humanity, they are simply cogs in the imperial war machine. They are the workers that grind and toil away the day within the bowels of a hive city.
So they're
just
like
to
ants.
wake up and repeat the process again until they die. There are certainly more desirable places one could be born into, like that of a pleasure world or an agri world, but these planets are far less numerous than the hive worlds and have ludicrously lower populations. If you were to roll the dice on being born into the 40k universe, it's like a 95% chance that you're going to end up doing backbreaking labor with no sense of fulfillment for the entirety of your life. And if you ever
Dang, that's
suffer
sad.
tragedy that prevents you from doing your job, there might not be any other direction for you to go. There's actually a really great short story about Gregor Eisenhorn, the famous radical inquisitor, that highlights this pretty well. You see, one of his earliest cases after becoming an inquisitor saw him come face to face with an old man who came to his office of his own free will to turn himself in. The man was a savant with
Really?
numbers and had been working for a local business and going over their ledgers when he found a number that didn't make sense. It more than didn't make sense. It shouldn't have existed. Whenever you tried to look at the pages, you knew something was wrong, but your eyes couldn't focus on it. He believed
Was it the
he had come
Necronomicon?
across the number of ruin, a telltale sign of chaos. He's fully convinced that Eisenhorn is going to interrogate
Number of
him
ruin.
and then either execute him or lock him up in some deep dark dungeon for the rest of his days. But even still, he was a loyal son of the Emperor, and the idea of trying to cover it up to ensure his own safety was simply not on the table.
What the heck
decided
was
to
that?
investigate the matter much further, and by the end of the story, he has cleared the old man of any wrongdoing, having tracked the corruption back to the company he worked for. All of its higher-ups are tried and the company is destroyed. Afterwards, the old man asks Eisenhorn what is going to happen to him. He was too old to learn a new skill, and nobody else in the city that he lived in had any need for somebody with his particular talents. He had enough rent money to get him through the next week, but after that, he didn't know what he was going to do.
Fascinating. Fascinating. The way that the at least this group of humans operate. Chat says, although humanity does keep the universe safer due to their dictatorship, which he is overlooking the video, the Warhammer universe has a major danger to all. Any negative emotion creates demons in a parallel dimension. That's interesting. So despite their pure hatred of each other, they gotta balance it all out. Positive emotions create even stronger demons. What? Now that I didn't know. Chat. That's pretty insane. That's actually pretty insane. Positive emotions create even stronger demons. That's actually that's pretty fascinating. So by keeping people down, the Empire actually prevents the universe from being completely overtaken by demons that only consume and destroy. So it's like, so they're like a bunch of Thanoses, basically. Humans have become Thanos, try to keep the universe in check, so it doesn't get destroyed by anything. What's it called? Entropy? Something like that. It's entropic. Hmm. Hmm. Still, they try. They get to prevent people from being happy and angry at the same time. So that explains why they look like they have sticks up their butts. Anger creates demons. Happiness also creates demons. So they gotta have stick up their butts in order to ensure the survival of the universe. Got it. No wonder they all had that look on their faces.
Eisenhorn basically
Like
tells
that.
him that the Emperor protects and all that jazz, but he was on his own. Spoilers, but after the next couple of months, that old man was dead. He was a toothless cog. There was no purpose for him to exist anymore within the Imperium, and thus he was allowed to perish. I should point out that this is an event that would end up haunting Eisenhorn and many years later would play a pivotal role in his journey of self-discovery, where he re-examined all of the people that he had let down across his career. But that's a story for another video. Even in the worst case scenario where an orc boy suffers some kind of crippling injury where he's not able to fight anymore, he can simply go to a pain boy and they'll slap on another limb or two, or 3 or 4, whatever the pain boy wants to do. And if they're not fitting in with their tribe for whatever reason, they can just go and join another one. It's kind of weird to think about just how the orcs are often portrayed as being aggressive and dumb and brutal with each other, but they actually have a stronger sense of community than most humans do. To close this video out, I want to talk about orc and human society and the overall happiness and fulfillment levels of every single individual in each of them. To do this, we're going to take a look at a real-world psychological theory known as Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're unfamiliar with it, the basic concept is that Maslow believed human needs could be arranged in a 5-tiered hierarchical system, wherein the needs at the bottom of the pyramid needed to be fulfilled before moving up to the higher ones.
Interesting.
But each of them played an integral part into the overall happiness, well-being, and most importantly, purpose in life for any given individual. The 5 tiers of the pyramid can be broken up into 2 sections, the bottom 2 being deficiency needs, whereas the top 3 are growth needs. The bottom 2 layers are concerned with basic survival, and there's no budging on any of these. We won't survive long without air, food, water, rest, and shelter. Once those things are taken care of, the individual needs things that are going to guarantee that they continue to survive, like having a good state of health, being properly employed, and having some form of protection. The next 3 layers are equally as important and focus more on the psychological side of existence. They don't extend from the lack of something like the first 2, but more the desire to grow, improve our state of being, and ultimately reach our full potential. The third layer focuses on belonging and love. Humans are social creatures, so things like friendship, family, and intimacy are integral parts of our existence. After that, we have the self-esteem layer, which is focused on our own personal self-confidence, achievements we can be proud of, and seeing ourselves as unique individuals with something important to offer others.
I'm now getting
And
game theory
finally,
vibes
at the very
here.
top is self-actualization, which is characterized by the idea of realizing what our potential is and then reaching it. It is to accomplish everything that we can and become everything we are capable of becoming. Whether that take the form of reaching physical perfection, mastering an area of study, or even something as simple as being a great parent. If we take the average human citizen within the Imperium and our run-of-the-mill orc boy from any of the clans, and then compare and contrast how they stack up on the pyramid, the results are pretty depressing for humanity. Your average hab worker has the bottom 2 tiers fully taken care of, and they spend every minute of every day working in the manufactorums before returning to their habs to rest, and then rinse and repeat the process day after day until they die. They have all of those basic needs taken care of, but there's no guarantee for growth. When we read the 40K novels and
So
we
they
see
get caught in
regular
a
Imperial
feedback
citizens,
loop.
there's always this notion
Mundane
of
tasks.
bleakness just beneath the surface. Life sucks, and people know it, but they make the best out of what they have. Love and romance is a theme that almost never comes up in the books at all. It surely exists within the universe, as characters will mention that they have a husband or wife, or will have children, which is indicative that they at least at one point were in some form of relationship. I've read over 100 of the 40K novels, and within them, the amount of times I've seen intimate relationships between its characters, I can count those examples on one hand. And if I'm being honest with you, every single one of them ends in tragedy. When it comes to the needs of self-esteem, whether that be prestige or feeling like you're accomplishing something, we definitely see this a lot in the main characters within the books because we're often following somebody of military importance. They live a life of eternal duty and find worth in serving the God Emperor. There is no question that duty is an important and powerful generator of a sense of purpose and accomplishment, and it works out very well for these characters.
And
But
Bison.
even though they are the ones the stories tend to follow, ending up in such a position is a remarkable rarity for the quintillions of humans that live within the Imperium. If you're somebody who plays the 40k tabletop game, then you'll know that we as a community often make jokes about how the guardsmen are simply being sent into the meat grinder, that they're like ants, and their strength is that there are billions of them, and they're all infinitely replaceable. It's not a very good look and paints kind of a dishonest picture of what the Guard is. Getting accepted into the Guard is incredibly rare and considered a huge honor for not only the individual, but for their friends, family, and sometimes even their entire town. They have been chosen for a higher purpose, to serve the Emperor and deliver his divine judgment across this blighted universe.
So,
Not only does this
fundamentalists.
give them a sense of self-esteem, but also a sense of accomplishment and a community with their other soldiers. Even though life in the Guard is frequently portrayed as a truly awful existence where death is around every corner, from a mental health perspective, it's a lot better than what the majority of humanity has to endure. If we look higher up the hierarchy
Really?
within the Imperium to things like commissars, inquisitors, interrogators, naval captains, generals, etc., these are the characters the stories tend to focus on, and they give us a warped perception of what it's really like to live within the Imperium. The reality is that even more so than just becoming a soldier within the Astra Militarum, ending up in a position like this is basically an impossibility for the teeming masses. Whether you're a farmer on an agri-world, a manufactorum worker within a hive city, or you're an indentured servant on a pleasure world, this is likely all you will ever know. It's all your parents ever knew, and it's all your children will ever experience as well. And if you cannot find your purpose in this, then a life of crime may be your only escape. And then the best outcome for you is that maybe you'll at least find
Wow.
peace when you're inevitably captured and lobotomized into a servitor.
This is
By comparison,
wow.
life as an orc is infinitely better. You're
Yeah, I'd
basically
rather be the
taken care
orc.
of by your tribe. You have a sense of community because you're one of the boys, a mad mob of hooligans out for a scrap and a good laugh. Your esteem is always sky high because orcs are the best, and as long as you're fighting, you're accomplishing something truly remarkable. Orcs fight to live and live to fight, and thus they have all become self-actualized. But even if one of them does have bigger dreams of becoming a boss or even a war boss, then all they gotta do is be particularly brutal or particularly cunning and crump the other boss. There's room for upwards mobility in any direction they could possibly want to go, and if by some miracle they don't fit in with their particular tribe, they can always just join another one. Hell, that's the whole point of the Freebooters. It's a bunch of miscreants that didn't fit in anywhere
Pirate
else,
orcs.
so they became fucking orc space pirates. And when orcs die, they believe that there's no better way to go out than roaring across the battlefield in a high-speed dragster, firing off volleys of Daka and screaming at the top of their lungs. The bigger the explosion that takes them out, the better. And then upon their death, they go to the Great Green and join with Gork and Mork. Humanity, on the other hand, is conflicted on their beliefs, even though the majority of them have had faith in the God Emperor forced on them by the ecclesiarchy, and most of them do take
As
comfort
is
in that
usual.
faith. The plague of doubt and chaos corruption are rampant throughout human society. Not so with the orcs. Not a single one of them has any doubt about their place in the universe, what life's all about, and where they're gonna go when they die. When comparing your baseline human to an orc boy, orcs just
Look who's
have
holding
better
that.
lives. That's an undeniable fact, and if I was to roll the dice on being born in the 40k universe, I sure do hope I'd be born as an orc.
I agree.
Because every other alternative sounds like a hellish existence. That is, unless I got born as a Gretchen. If we're talking about grots, then you can literally take everything I said in this entire video and throw it out the window, because their lives are the worst. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think the orcs are really as intelligent as I've made them out to be, or do you think they're just a pack of big dumb brutes that are obsessed with fighting? How do you think they stack up against humanity? Which society do you think is better, and which would you personally rather be a part of? Also, what's your favorite piece of orc lore or bit of technology that you find particularly ingenious?
If you want the messed up thing, look into the origin of the demon Lord Slanesh. Basically, the space elves were so happy in partaking in luxury that they gave birth to the demon Ra. Humans know all that, and the elites try to prevent the collapse of the universe by keeping sentient beings enslaved so demons won't come in to destroy the universe. I think he is missing the point here. The orcs aren't united due to a higher understanding. They unite because it is easier to win a war. They are indeed a little dumb, following only their basic instincts of fighting. Also, the orc boss always ends up killing more orcs than their enemies with internal disputes and disregard for safety during war, which is hilarious. Those generals in the Dawn of War game have an ability in which they kill one person and everyone else gets better morale and better accuracy due to fear of being shot and dead next. They are pragmatic, only the ones with genetic enhancements and already superior genes when born are capable of enduring the battle directly against the other dangers, so only those get the higher precision. As for orcs, they just fight and level up until they become big enough to lead. The poor Gretchen tied to the car there. Yeah, that was funny. Also, one of the most gruesome and funny orc weapons is the Gretchen teleporter. They teleport a Gretchen inside an enemy's body, and the thing tries to escape from the inside alien style. No, he didn't address their power, unfortunately. In Warhammer, all races have a psychic superpower. The humans have the most common type, which is basically psychic energy to create Hadokens and lasers from their minds. Some strong enough to destroy spaceships like Goku's Kamehameha. There we go. Thanks, chat. So, no, definitely would choose to be with the orcs, because like I said, the humans got too much sticks up their rear ends. They're too rigid. They're too into themselves. They're too into their they insist upon themselves. There we go. They insist upon themselves in the universe. The whole glory and honor thing, and if you don't do it, then somehow they take your body and turn you into a machine or something, and that's insane. Whereas with the orcs, you fight and you lose a limb, then you get the machine. You get the part. Chat says, but the orcs' psychic power is reality shaping. But the orcs don't know they have that power, and nobody else knows that either. Oh no, that's and if they discover that, they'll reverse engineer it and put it into a car. They'll put that into a car and turn it into something awesome. No, the thing is that the orcs have to have some level of intelligence, because they can't fly a plane, they can't pilot a boat, they can't drive a car if they don't know how any of it works. Or else at a dumb level, they would be nothing more than just hit the pedal until they ram into something. Yes, it's I wouldn't say that they inherently are dumb. I wouldn't even say that they're slow either. I would say they got grade C intelligence. I would say they have grade C intelligence. I wouldn't even go so Oh, really? That's why they paint things with the chessboard, chat? It's because of their shape reality powers. Interesting. Interesting. I wonder if there's a lore behind that. A lore video on the checkerboard. Yeah, the different colors do reflect their train of thought. Red painting makes cars go faster. Yeah, like that. Each of the different colors. But the checkerboard is the one that's got me very fascinated. But I would say they're more like if they were in high school, they would be most likely getting 50 or 60s in their tests. Smart enough to know that 2 + 2 = 4, but not smart enough. Not smart enough. Smart enough to how you say was it algebra? Unless they beat up the teacher. Unless they beat up the teacher in half the class. They imitate the actions, and because their powers shape reality, they start believing it. Yes. I do recall seeing that in one of the lore videos mentioning that their whole entire operation is mimicry. Basically, their power is mimicry. They see what is done and they just duplicate it, but they do it better. Which is actually human intelligence, part of human intelligence. We do have humans that can actually attain knowledge through action as opposed through reading. I'm one of those guys. I'm better at learning through actions than reading off a book. Chat says, so when an orc that never built anything sees a human hammering on metal and fixing a giant mecha, the orc can comprehend that hammer metal makes big robot. So he believes it, and it does work because of their shared psychic power of reality shaping. That is the funniest thing about orcs. Their equipment does not work at all unless they use it because they believe it works. Yes. The one of the lore videos did point that out regarding the orcs, that that's exactly how they do it. They just believe it works and make it work. Basically, you give them a square peg and tell them it goes into a round hole. They wouldn't know what to do with it. But if they were to watch Gallagher take the mallet and smash it into the hole, then they'll believe that the square goes into the hole and will make the square go into the hole. They'll punch it in there. So I would definitely say that orcs are definitely superior to humans because of mimicry. You know, the humans are too rigid and too structured, but most importantly rigid. They're very superstitious. They can be very reactionary, and they can be very fearful. It has nothing to do with them being squishy, spongy little things that can, it can end up spilling out. They live on conviction, absolute conviction, and the orcs has flexible conviction. They have more flexible conviction because unless it's proven otherwise, they're the type that won't believe it unless they see it or they do it. Or they do it. You know, and once they believe that, that's when you end up like this. You end up looking like this, and I'm still trying to understand one important thing about this image. Where the hell is his arms at? His whole shoulder. His whole head is below his shoulders. He's like this. He's basically walking around like this. That has got to hurt. You know, he's like this. How is he doing that? How is this orc doing that? He believes it, that's why. He believes that the orcs can stand like that, that's why. Because he believes it, he's defying all logic, all things logic. He's saying this is scientifically possible of the body anatomy, that the head is all the way down here and the shoulders are all the way up there. And then he's coming down, marching like this. To this poor guy who's about to get flattened, who's probably thinking the same thing. How is his head all the way down, way below his shoulders, and his shoulders all the way up, and still manage to keep his arms straight? Chet says, sometimes humans salvage orc equipment and use spaceships made of wood, and they wonder how the hell it works, but it doesn't. It's just that the orcs believe it could fly into space using wood planks, so it worked due to their power. Or things like rubber tires for vehicles shooting plasma, and when salvaged, the other races wonder what kind of technology made tires shoot lasers, but nobody understands that it only works due to the orc's secret power. Not even the orcs understand that. The thing about the human superstition is that it actually works to an extent. The psychic powers do change the shape of energies and how the parallel dimension interacts with our dimension. I would say their psychic energy, the orcs' psychic energy. Oh yeah. The orcs' money is teeth, and they always grow again like sharks. So they always keep coming out. Yeah. I would say, but what the orcs are really doing, and they don't realize it, is imbuing all the equipment that they make and acquire with psychic energy. It's not that they don't believe it, saying like in their minds they believe it. It's the unawareness that they are actually projecting psychic energy into the stuff. And because it's imbued with psychic energy, it does things that defy all logic. So to take what you say, chat, the rubber tires that can shoot plasma. The reason why it shoots plasma is because the psychic energy imbued it. The psychic energy went into the rubber tires. So when they do something like, say, flick the rubber tire, the plasma energy comes out of the tire because they flicked it. If they were to put enough energy without realizing it, like if they think that the tire is a bomb, the psychic energy will flow into the rubber tire, and when they slam the rubber tire, it will blow up because it has the psychic energy of an explosion. Chat says the orc psychic power is also why they actually work together. One orc boss gets in a frenzy about fighting, and then all the other orcs start believing that frenzy and become berserkers too. At some point, the whole tribe is in a rage, going to war. The Wog. They go into Wog mode. Wog. I really like that. It's so simple. Such a simple word for a battle cry. Wog. And every victory makes them believe they are invincible, so they keep doing it until all tribes are united in one big frenzy. They go Wog. Such a simple thing. I like that. But most definitely, the orcs does have sea level intelligence. They just enough to know how to eat, how to work with machinery on a base level, and they build up on experience. They know how they can heal each other, how to replace limbs if they lose it. So they have good grasp of medicine. And I would say that they're most definitely superior to humans because they have so much flexibility. They're not condemning themselves to a life of slavery. They're not condemning themselves to rigid rules and structures. They're letting their society flow and operate candidly. Very candidly. Chat says there are instances, for example, where orcs get metal planks shaped like guns without understanding how to build guns, but because it was shaped like a gun, it was enough for it to shoot bullets because they believed it would. Like I said, they're imbuing psychic energy into these items, and the projectiles that shoot out of them is because they are using the psychic energy to fire it out. But they don't realize they have psychic energy because, like I said, they're sea level intelligence. They get 50 and 60s in their math class. Enough to know that 2 + 2 = 4, but they don't have the algebraic knowledge of knowing that they're actually using a source of energy, and it confuses the humans, and that's why I say that the orcs are superior because humans are so rigid. They're bound to logic. They're so bound to logic in this world. They have high intelligence, yes, but they have shackled themselves so hard in their logic and superstitions, their societal and ideological upbringing, that they can't comprehend how the orcs can do what they do so easily without realizing that the orcs have no idea what they're really doing. They just do it. Let's see. Chat says also all the orcs' bullets are their teeth too. They never shoot bullets if they have no teeth left, because they believe that guns shoot bullets only when they are teeth to use. Only partially. An orc boss basically enslaves all other orcs by strength. It is just that they believe this is for the best, so they obey. Yeah, it's like he said. The orc boss gives them motivation. He's not exactly enslaving them. He's just giving them motivation. Because there is that one group of orcs. Let's see. There is that one group of orcs that that can break away very easily from the group, and they kind of become more mercenary like. Let's see here. I have their names here. Let's see. Let's see. Where did I write that? Because I do have it. I have their name here. I can't remember everybody off the top of my head, but I definitely have their name here. Let's see. Weird Boys. Is it the Weird Boys? No. Let's see. It's not the Weird Boys. They do the magic. No, it's not the Flash Gits. I'm trying to remember. Man, they were they're the ones that tend to go solo. Like they'll team up with they're very logical. They're the ones that can develop like they'll become mercenaries. Why can't I remember them? I know I have wrote this down. Knobs? Is it the Knobs? No. Let's see. I don't have the notes on here. Oh, I lost the note because I had it that explained. Crap, I did lose the notes. Ah, man. Sorry, guys. But you know who I'm talking about. They're the ones that are the mercenaries. They could break away, become the mercenaries. The orcs are like, they're the ones that could use the human tech far better than them. They can, and do human tactics and such. And I can't believe I forgot their name. Everybody's gonna kill me. Everybody. Yeah, for Warhammer, there was a faction of orcs that tend to go solo, and they get weird looks from the orcs because their tactics are very human like they learn it from the humans and they engage in those types of tactics. Odd Boys, yes. Is it the Odd Boys? Yeah, I think it's the Odd Boys. Knowledge is ingrained. Yeah, it's I think it's the Odd Boys. I think the Odd Boys are the ones that do it. I'm sure everyone in the comments will tell me. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think that's the Odd Boys. They're the ones that do the tactics, and they're ones that tend yeah, they're the ones that do the tactics. One last time from the chat. Let's see here. And that is the orcs' weakness. Any defeat causes mass disbelief, so their psychic power diminishes. That is how humans defeat orcs. Humans are very strict in Warhammer, but it does have a reason. Any freedom bring the literal end of the universe, as demons are real physical beings that are born from emotions and come here only to destroy. There are even instances of orcs and humans uniting against demons. By the way, orcs are one of the 2 races that are immune to temptations by demons because they can't be corrupted at all. They fight for pleasure, nothing else. They can't feed the demon god of anger, and they also can't feed the demon god of knowledge, the 2 demon gods that feed on war. The other incorruptible race are the space zombies. My favorite, the Necrons. I forgot the name, but I know what you mean. It's all right. I'm sure I'll get in the comments section, chat room. So, how you say? I had one more thing to say. Oh yes, Mork and Gork. That's because Mork and Gork can beat up the other gods. They can pretty much beat up everybody. You know. They'll beat the demons up too if necessary. That's why the orc got no problem. That's why they got no problem. And not only that, but fighting demons means they got a chance to fight. Even if they fight alongside humans, they don't care as long as they get to fight. It's all about the fight. But yeah, in terms of that, Mork and Gork can deal with the demon gods. The demon gods can't really fight them at all. I'm still wholly convinced that that Mork and Gork has the same level, has the same type of power, the rule set that the orcs have, where the reason why that they're so powerful as gods and as big as they are is because they fight everything. You know what I'm saying? They're like the ultimate fighters. You know what I'm saying? They live up to the rule of the more you fight, the more you win, the bigger you get, and they're the top 2. They're the 2 that legitimately won so many fights, even against gods, that they are just so tall and so powerful. They're the tallest of all the orcs and the most powerful because they can beat the gods. And that's why the gods are afraid to fight them. So, yeah, that's pretty much... this is pretty much a temporary stop of the orcs. Amazing faction. I'm so glad that that they turned out the way they did. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about Warhammer, because everybody that when I watched that first introductory video, and every faction was just dark and brooding, dark and brooding, dark and brooding, dark and brooding. Then suddenly, orcs. They take pleasure in everything. They love everything. And all of a sudden, I was able to connect the dots and found that they're just a bunch of party animals. You know, they just come in for the party. They're there to celebrate. They grab their solo cups full of beer or whatever liquor they're drinking. They're just chilling, and then they're telling all the other factions here have this solo cup full of alcohol and chill. Oh man. Yeah. The orcs are really awesome. I love them. And I definitely would like to one day get my hands on official Warhammer figurines of the orcs. I wanna get one and put that on display. I would love to do so. It'll be awesome. It'll be epic. Wholeheartedly epic. So yeah. So until I find more orc lore, especially the checkerboard one. I want to really see it lore on the checkerboard. I'm gonna shift on over to the Tyranids and start researching on them. Find out who their hero is, who their champions are, what their hive mind like is. how terrifying they are to the universe. It's gonna be a very fascinating thing to see what they do. So yeah, definitely a great start. A great curve to begin in the Warhammer lore. I don't think I would have enjoyed it if I hadn't come across the orcs and leaned into them. Because now I really like Warhammer. I love Warhammer. I guess I love Warhammer. There, because I'm going into the Tyranids. The orcs. It's like yeah, the orcs was a great beginner beginner start for me at least into the Warhammer universe, and I'm very happy about that. So yeah, up next is the Tyranids. I hope you'll join me for that. If you got anybody who's good on Tyranids, Tyranid lore, don't hesitate to point in the comment below, and I can check and we'll check that out. I want to make sure I get the Tyranids right. All right. So head on over to Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com and grab yourself a copy of The Impossible Man, a strange fantasy novel written by me. You'll find links to my novel down in the description below, along with links to other merch such as pins, stickers, t-shirts, music. Enjoy the products. Thank you for your patronage. And if you happen to have a copy of The Impossible Man and did a lore video on it, thank you very much. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on it. And if you're interested, you can join me on my live multi-stream on Twitch and Kick every Monday through Thursday, 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I do lore research, cultural studies, gaming, and more. I look forward to hanging out with you. So, until the next Warhammer research and the first look and the first research of Tyranids, I thank you all for joining me, and I wish you all a good night, a buenas noches, and oyasuminasai.